Well, hi, this is Governor Pete Ricketts, and this is another edition of the Nebraska Way, where it's all about how Nebraska is growing and more. Today, I've got another terrific guest to talk to us about how being here in Nebraska is such a huge advantage. We've got Norm Krug, who's the CEO of Preferred Popcorn. Norm, welcome to the program. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor and privilege. I'm looking forward to you and I chatting for an hour. That would be great.
Yeah, we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun. So first of all, a little bit of an introduction. Norm is the CEO of Preferred Popcorn. Norm has been growing and producing popcorn for more than 40 years. Your dream was founding a popcorn company, and it began when you were just a boy, working with your dad just a mile away from where your Preferred Popcorn headquarters are today, right? That's
Correct.
Pretty cool.
Yes.
And under Norm's leadership, Preferred Popcorn has grown to 4 locations with customers around the world. And actually, hopefully we get a chance to talk about that because I've been with you when we visited some of your customers around the world. Let's see, you export popcorn to 70 countries. Here in the U.S., the company supplies many movie theaters, and you supply movie theaters overseas too, right? That's
Correct.
part of the market.
Yes.
And then your son Sam is with you in the business and continue to expand the family's irrigated farming operation so that you can lead ever more the bigger growing team at Preferred Popcorn, right? So Sam is kind of taking over the farming stuff?
Well, he's actually quite involved in the popcorn plant.
Okay, all right.
As well. He's doing that. And we have several good young men helping out on the farm as well.
Awesome. And so you also own and operate Krug Farms, we were just talking about, which you produce specialty grains, including white and yellow corn, soybeans, and organic. Krug Farm focuses on sustainable farming and practices to preserve the land. And that's one of the things I always talk about, and we'll get to that a little bit later as well, just how our farmers and ranchers here in Nebraska were the original conservationists. And then, of course, Norm, you are also highly involved, as many of my guests are, in their community. You are the chairman of the National Popcorn Board's International Marketing Committee since 2007, and you've been a member there since 2008. You're serving your 3rd term as chairman of the USA Popcorn Institute, which you've been a member of since 2000. You're an active member of the Aurora Cooperative, the Nebraska Farm Bureau, the Nebraska Corn Growers Association, and you've won numerous awards throughout the years, including MEDA, which is the Midwest was it International Trade Association?
Yeah, great group.
Media Exporter of the Year in 2014, Export-Import Bank Exporter of the Year in 2017, and State Chamber Manufacturer of the Year in 2019. So lots of great accomplishments there. But before we dive into Preferred Popcorn and all that, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your family, how you got into popcorn, all that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, it's a fun story, and I started out married my high school sweetheart
that's awesome.
in 1977. And we both grew up on the farm, but came to the University of Nebraska, which I can't say enough good things about. As we go through, I'll mention several things that came back and helped me in those early beginnings. But went to the University of Nebraska, majored in animal science, of all things, and it was great. Great experience.
I just read the bio here about how your dream was to have this popcorn farm. You majored in animal science.
I know, and that's one of the things I compliment the university on, because here I come, showed 4-H cows and steers and hogs, and I'm animal science guy. But I got here and I meet with my counselor, and they said, well, you have to take economics and you have to take agronomy and you've got to take literature. I'm like, what? No, I'm just majoring in animal science. You must have made a mistake. But it was
liberal
really
arts
good.
education, Norm.
It
liberal
was,
arts education.
yeah. I was a little pushback there, and it was funny. But I can remember today about taking World Economics 210 downtown city campus. And they're talking about inflation and how you combat inflation and how government impacts. And I remember raising my hand up and I said, does everybody that's involved in politics have to take this class? And he said, I wish that were true.
Yeah.
But that gave me a great broad education and allowed me to go from animal science to adapt to the opportunities that were available at the time. And for me, where I was at and where I was farming, agronomy and corn and soybeans.
Was this your family's farm?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
so you grew up helping your folks out on the family farm.
Yes.
Went to the University of Nebraska, got this animal science degree.
Yes.
And was your plan always to go back to the family farm?
Yes. Yeah. I had a great experience on the farm, and that's part of the popcorn story too. My dad didn't have much education, moved here from Kansas, got a job picking popcorn by hand and worked at a popcorn plant that we're now at all those years ago. And then,
And by the way, I should mention that Norm was very kind to bring us some popcorn here today.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
brought
actually,
you
we're filming
some.
this on St. Patrick's Day, so we got green
found
popcorn.
some green popcorn.
Got some green popcorn.
and some pretty tasty. So you have to give me your opinion on that.
Thumbs up.
Good. So yeah, and that is another great thing, about Nebraska and our education and the diversity to be able to major in animal science and end up being the CEO of a popcorn plant. I felt like some of the ag economics that I had Dr. Ron Hansen, you probably knew him, taught here a long time, did a great job of teaching us economic principles that apply to whatever business you end up running. And hedging, and had a class on hedging that I'm still actively using today. So great education, and I had
Did you
here.
get married in college, or did you wait till after college?
I did in college. Everybody
right.
told us not to do that, but it worked out pretty well for me.
How long have you been married now?
That's a good question. We're coming up on 45 years.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yes, and that was part of our popcorn story. My dad raised popcorn 45 years, and this spring will be my 45th popcorn crop.
Awesome.
So 90 years of history in producing popcorn, and probably he was one of the first pioneers of producing popcorn and irrigation and all that goes with Nebraska and what makes Nebraska great. But that's one thing that I know will come up here, but as we talk about the ability to hand down the family farm, and there's a huge amount of value in having that lifetime of experience that I didn't learn at the university. I learned a lot of great things at the university, but there's still some things you learn from the family farm and having your dad do that.
All right, we're going to jump into that in a little bit, but I want to just get a little bit of your background first. So, you got married, University of Nebraska. Did you go straight back to the farm then?
Yes. Okay. Yes. I had one interview to be a teacher and ended up going back to the farm.
All right. So then your dad was already growing popcorn at the time. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many kids do you have?
I have 4 children that we've been blessed with, and really excited with. Now we have 15 grandchildren.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you can imagine the joy and life fulfillment we have in that, but that's really.
And so we talked about one of your kids, Sam, who's back helping with the family operation, both the popcorn and the farming.
Yes, yeah. Sam has done a great job, and he also grew up in Nebraska, went to private education at Nebraska Christian, and I interestingly went on to Bible college, and that's been a great background for him as well. I used to tease him, could you take one business class, Sam? And he's doing a really great job, and it's a real privilege to get to work with your family. My oldest daughter, another great thing about, I think, sounds braggy, but we have a Nebraska education. She went to a small private school in Central City, Nebraska, and she ends up going to Pepperdine in California because that was her dream. And I told her, there's no way, we can't afford that. But she made that happen, and now she's our lead organic salesman on the West Coast.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
So she's involved in the business as well, along with my daughter-in-laws in the HR department. And one son, you've met Nathan.
He's a doctor.
He's a doctor, and on the sidelines, he's a great help and support as well. And my youngest daughter, Abby, who does all our social media.
Fantastic.
And she was helping me prepare today, Governor, and she goes, be sure to mention I'm the favorite daughter. So we have a lot of fun, and it's great to have a family business. And of course, along with lots of other great Nebraskans that are working at Preferred.
Yeah. Now, talk a little bit about popcorn, because I think a lot of people may not understand that popcorn is special when it comes to raising corn. So a lot of corn goes to feed animals, for example. But popcorn has to be treated specially. I would say it's probably a little bit more fragile. Is that the right way to say it?
It is a unique crop. It is a separate plant. If you're driving down Interstate 80 and there was a popcorn field, you probably wouldn't know. It looks similar in that way, but it is a completely different genetic, different size of ear, different color, and specifically designed to pop. The main things you look for as you select popcorn is taste and expansion rate and color, and all those things are different than yellow corn for feed. So it is quite a bit different, but certainly a great agricultural product. And one more crop that part of what motivated us was the corn was really low when we started this.
Yeah.
And we wanted to provide other alternatives for Nebraska farmers.
Yeah. So again, just looking at your portfolio of what you're growing, just a way to be able to expand that portfolio to have something so you're not all dependent on just one crop being successful or having a good price for that. You can try other things, right?
Correct. Yeah. I think all of our farmers raise multiple crops, and that's one of the other benefits. It fits in a nice crop rotation. Usually you raise soybeans, and that's a great crop to put nitrogen into the ground, and then you come in with popcorn, which has a lower demand for nitrogen than corn does, and follow with that so that you don't have any cross-pollination, and you're able to market it as non-GMO. Popcorn is 100% non-GMO, and that's important when you're exporting products around the world.
Yeah. And is popcorn a little bit harder to harvest, or is it, you have to be a little bit more careful with it anyway?
Well, you have to treat it gentle from all the way through. We all talk about unpopped kernels, or they've had different names over the years.
Right.
But the unpopped kernels are a result of being a scratch or handled too roughly or harvested too soon.
And so then it won't pop properly.
Right. Yeah. What makes it pop is the moisture inside the kernel. As you heat it up, those molecules get excited and they got to get out of there. And so if there's been a scratch or something during the process, it doesn't hold the moisture in long enough for the explosion to take place.
Okay, got it. So it's the moisture in the kernel that actually makes it pop.
That's what makes it explode. And it has to hold it in there just the right amount of time. So it has to have the hard pericarp.
Okay, very
That
good.
holds it in.
And so talk to a little bit about when you went back to the family farm, how much of the operation was popcorn, and how did you decide to grow that?
Yeah, well, great question. And it was a probably pretty small part at the time. But as I said, my father was involved in this popcorn plant, and he had made a decision. He had to make a decision. He was a hard worker, and the owner advanced him and said, do you want to farm or do you want to run the processing? And he chose at the time, that fork in the road, he chose to do the farming, but had always wondered, like a lot of us in our careers, did I take that right path? Should I went and run the popcorn plant and been involved in the marketing and those things? So that was always his dream, and that ties in to why we chose it. I farmed 20 years without raising popcorn for others, but we were not in the popcorn processing business. So for my first 20 years of my career, I was 100% farmer and was not involved in marketing.
And in that part of it, how much were you, as far as the overall, what you were doing was popcorn versus some of these other grains?
Yeah, roughly a third. We always
okay.
kind of go for a third, so we can go soybeans, popcorn, and then back to commercial corn or white food grade corn.
Right, okay.
The rotation, it all ties into the sustainability that we'll probably talk about here shortly. And a lot of things, why popcorn fits in well.
Okay, cool. So how did you decide to make the jump into processing then?
Well, the plant had been vacant. The current popcorn plant that was there, the owner had sold the inventory and didn't sell the popcorn plant itself, and so it was for sale, and had been for sale for about 2 years. And interestingly, it's kind of one of those stories about where something negative happens that changes your direction. I was farrowing hogs. I was using my animal science degree.
Okay, good.
I had 100 sows, and we were farrowing hogs, and my hog barn burnt down. And of course, that was traumatic and horrible. And so we got the insurance check, and I looked over at that vacant popcorn plant and decided, I think I'll try that. And also a goal of fulfilling my dad's dream of we ought to be involved in the processing, sales, and marketing. So
It's called vertical integration.
that's right. It's an important buzzword that's been around since I was in that econ class 45 years ago, but it's very true, and that's what we're doing. So I joined in. I tried to work that out alone, but it's a pretty big project, and ended up with 4 other farmers and Aurora Co-op. Or there were 4 of us together, 3 farmers, myself, and Aurora Co-op, and I was on the board at that time, and we decided that would be a good, exciting, value-added project, and so we purchased it and jumped right in.
Okay, cool. So talk a little bit about the growth of Preferred Popcorn. How did that all come about? What did you guys do to be able to expand the brand?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's an interesting story, and we were really good, as I said, we're all good popcorn raisers. And I love to tell the story about, so we got this facility, we bought it, so obviously we had short time to decide, but we might as well fill it up. Let's raise enough popcorn to fill that up. So I'm sitting there, and here's all this popcorn in. We had, for reference, 200 trucks coming. And so we had a little time, and we were starting to do marketing. And I called the University of Nebraska, and I graduated from here. I had friends and contacts. And I thought, they might buy all 200. Who knows? Well, and we had other theaters. We were trying to get AMC theaters and chains that we thought or were told that we would have a good chance at obtaining. So we're raising popcorn. Well, the reason it's such an interesting story is it puts it in perspective. So I get a hold of the right people at the university and find out, well, how much do you need? We're going to have about 200 trucks. What do you think? Because universities, basketball, football, all of their concessions.
Sell popcorn, right.
Yeah. And they said, well, I hate to disappoint you, but we buy about one truck. So the whole...
That's it?
That's it. And to this day, that's all they use.
No kidding.
One semi-load will supply, and that's the challenge. But part of the lesson from all this is popcorn goes a long ways, and we're extremely good and productive on Nebraska farm ground. But the whole university is one truck a year, not quite a full one.
Right, not even quite a full one.
And then, of course, they went on and said, but our corporate sponsor gives us that one truck. So,
so you can't even sell the one truck.
You would have to pay us in order to get popcorn into the university. So that was like, this is not a great way to start.
Right.
But launched what became, again, sometimes hardships make us better. And so we knew right away, well, we could supply everybody in Nebraska, and we still wouldn't sell all our popcorn. So we had to think beyond the state of Nebraska, and we had to even think beyond the United States. And because we were new, that created additional challenge because you had well-established, good popcorn companies serving the U.S. theater industry. So exports became a real priority for us, and had to get out of the tractor and onto an airplane and started going to trade shows and governors' trade missions and any opportunity we could to get to other countries. We've got a lot of fun stories about Japan and some of my first trips over there, and but that was good. It pushed us
talk about
outside.
that a little bit. Talk about how do you break into those markets, and maybe especially because I know it was obviously before I became governor, but you'd worked with previous governors to go on trade missions, and that helped you open up doors for you. And
those are great opportunities to get the attention of the customer in another country. You're not just a person. I mean, ultimately, we have to sell the popcorn. When you go and you do a fantastic job, thank you for conducting those trade missions. Because you say, I'm here with the governor of Nebraska, and we would like to visit you during this trip. Now you have credibility, and
I don't even have to go. You can just say, "I'm with the governor," and you can get the door open, and you can go. I don't even have to be there.
That's really correct. Yeah, it's our job. We have to sell the popcorn, but it gets us in the door. We've had a great success and been several trade missions to Japan and China, and you've led trade missions for us to Mexico. And
I've been with you all three of those places, and Germany too. Don't forget that.
Germany was a great show, great experience. And those are key. And those are, again, one more chance where the state, local farmers, local business people, all working together to make things happen and create a business that's grown from 1 million to 70 million. And it's not the total solution for all of agriculture, but it's certainly one step that's helpful in providing more revenue, another crop to raise, and jobs and businesses that have been, I think, really good for our state and great for our family.
Yeah, cool.
And it comes back to just learning the cultural things that are important to, like handing a Japanese gentleman your business card. You don't put his business card in your back pocket because that implies you're setting on him. Right. And you might as well not go to Japan if you're not going to pay attention to those types of traditions.
So how do you learn about those sort of things?
Well, it's really fairly easy. Of course, we have a wonderful internet system
So,
now,
it's just
but
simple.
that
Just
some of
go
this
Google
was
it, yeah.
pre-Google.
A Google
We-
machine knows everything.
Yes, yes, they could tell you a lot right from there. But the getting to know, we usually have distributors in those countries, and it's asking questions. You know, like, okay, what do I do? What do I not do? How can I make sure I make a good impression? One favorite story was we went to a large, publicly traded, huge business in Japan on one of my first trips, and the gentleman hosting us said, "Now I just have to go to a meeting here. You just wait. Then we're going to go see the customer." And I thought, oh, well, I just flew all the way over here from Nebraska. You know, I didn't really come here just to wait. So he's off at his meeting, and the CEO of the company came walking through. And I thought, well, I might as well meet him.
Introduce himself. Just
What do I
introduce
got to
myself,
lose?
yeah.
Which I found out culturally, you don't do that. The CEO isn't approached in those companies. But I did. And I handed him, this was turned out to be great deal, but all I could think of, what do I give him? Well, I had the Nebraska t-shirt with me. So I go up to a CEO who I shouldn't even been approaching. And I said, "Hello, I'm Norm Krug. I'm from Nebraska. Would you like a t-shirt?"
You don't even have to come to Nebraska to get the t-shirt. I'm
Right.
coming from Nebraska
Here
to
in
give you the
Nebraska,
t-shirt.
here's a t-shirt. And so he was on his way to meeting, but he thanked me, and the distributor comes back. He goes, "I can't believe it. I can't believe it." I go, "What?" He goes, "I've been working here 20 years, never even met Mr. Yamazaka. You know, I've never even got to meet him personally. You already met him, and he wore your t-shirt to the meeting." He was chairman of the board. He came in with the Nebraska t-shirt on to the board meeting.
Oh, how funny.
Oh, it was an incredible experience. And it was just, again, a result of being outgoing, being friendly, doing that kind of Nebraska charm that we all grew up with. So they go to the board meeting. He comes back in and goes, "Okay, well, we're supposed to wait 15 more minutes." And I said, "Why?" So I'm not sure. They're supposed to wait. So then he comes down, he gets a phone call, and he comes over. He goes, "I can't believe it. I can't believe it." I said, "What?" And he says, "I work here 20 years, never been in Mr. Yamazaki's office. He invited us to his office." So we go clear to the top floor, 70 floors up, Tokyo, Japan, and had the greatest talk. He had been here in Lincoln and went to a Nebraska football
Oh,
game.
no kidding.
He had been invited here by another company 10 years before, but he knew all about Nebraska and he knew about the Huskers. And he loved, you know, the informal way that I approached him, and we sold him popcorn by that evening.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that doesn't always go that way.
Right.
I'm not trying to
That's
say
why
it's
this
that
isn't one of
easy.
those good stories you're telling.
This is one of the good ones, yes. Yes, yeah. There's just as many tough ones, but just an example of if you think outside the box. And, you know, there I was. It's a long ways from Chapman, Nebraska, 296 population, to Tokyo, Japan.
One of the largest cities in the world.
Yes.
Which is also but a great city, nonetheless.
It's a great city, and there's great people there. I
Yeah.
think that's been one of the great things about our growth over the last 20 years is there are great people all over the world. So I'm pretty passionate about trade because and people ask me, why would you trade with that country? And they're very good points. We don't usually agree with all of the human rights or the policies within those countries. But it's been my experience in doing this that you have more influence if you're trading with them than if you just say, we're not having anything to do with you guys. And there are tough governments, and there are things about other countries that Nebraskans wouldn't support, and we still don't. But I've had some of those people in my living room, and so you have a chance to impact others, I think, more by traveling and trading than you would if you just said nothing to do with you guys.
Yeah. So is there another story that you have where you learned a valuable lesson, maybe not in such a positive way, about the culture and how important it is to understand somebody else's culture when you go into that country to be able to do business?
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
is there
There's
things that you've learned, like, when you're with, a Chinese company, you're going to have to expect to go out drinking afterwards or something like that?
Yeah, those are all cultural things that, again, you try to study before you get there. And usually you have a host that you can find out those
Do you have a
things
surprising
before, but-
story about something like that?
Well, I've eaten some really crazy things, or in other countries. This one happens to be was in China, but in that country, when you're the CEO, you're the honored guest,
Right.
And so we had a funny story. There were 3 of my cohorts, and they're good friends of mine and peers, and we're all the same. But when we were going to this meeting, I said, "Well, you guys." You just need to pretend for the next hour that I'm kind of a big deal. Which you can imagine my peers.
Yeah, I'm sure
going,
they're like, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
Norm.
right, Norm.
Yeah.
So we get in to the meeting, and then we're there. And then, of course, I was in my friend Greg. I said, could you give me some tea, Greg? So he would do that. But that is the culture. So the chairman, I come in, and we're at this meal, and it's in China, and they have those big circling
Right.
tables.
Circular tables, right.
Well, there, then, of course, the guest of honor is the first one to eat. And it doesn't matter what it is,
Yeah.
you're expected to try it, to
Yeah.
have it. I mean, they all just wait for you. So here they come spinning around this large fish that looked to me like a big carp out of the Platte River. And I went to grab some of the tender white meat, and the chairman, no. And the waitress comes over, splits the head of that whole fish, and takes the brain out and pours it into my bowl. And that was what I had to eat in front of the whole group. And they're
So how
all
was
waiting.
it?
It was bad. It had kind of the viscosity of Jell-O. So
yeah,
if that
the
tells you
brains, yeah.
anything. So it was...
But that was the delicacy.
That was a delicacy, and a lot of times that happens, in the travels, and you've led those missions, and there's a expectancy that you will try that out and try out their delicate fancy food, and
Yeah.
so that's fun, in the end. That is not.
Well, and then
been
also
bad.
one of the things that when we were there, in the big round tables, you do the toasts of the baijiu.
Correct.
And so,
correct.
and then again, as the honored guest, you can designate somebody to take your drinks for you. But typically, again, you're going to have everybody going around. There's going to be numerous toasts. Now, they do
Right.
the good news is they give you very little glasses, but
Right. Yeah, you have
That
to
adds
learn
up
tricks
over
on that.
time.
Yeah, you have to plan that strategically. Usually, I
Right.
get some friend at the table that will pour water in mine so that you can make those toasts. But you're right, that's a cultural thing.
but again,
to
an
adapt to.
expectation of what you have to do as part of the
Yeah,
culture for Chinese businesses.
they'll have everybody in the room will do a toast and welcome you and say kind things. And I mean, it's a nice cultural thing that they do. That they're very complimentary of each other, and that's their way of getting to know each other outside of business. When you're in business, you talk about business. When you get to those events, then you're expected to join in. So
Yeah.
that's it's been an interesting part. I've eaten a lot of strange things in the last 20 years.
Now, we talked, I think originally, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Norm, a lot of what your initial sales were popcorn to like movie theaters.
Correct.
Things.
Correct.
But you've also branched out because we visited one of your plants in Mexico, Toluca, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Where you actually were packaging your own popcorn as well.
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit? How did you decide to make the jump to doing that?
Yeah, well, that was a big step in our adventure, and I wanted to share some, and that's how we got there. To answer your question, our philosophy has been different than most. You have a lot of teams where you set goals, and you say, well, our goal is to grow 7% this year. And those are great, not putting that down, but our philosophy has been we look where God is working, and then if we pray about it and we feel he's leading us there, then we believe you join him there. And that philosophy has taken us much further than a 10% goal. I mean, I never woke up in the morning and said, I want to sell popcorn to 70 countries. I wouldn't have had that big of a goal, but it's looking where he's working. So that ties into your question about Mexico. We had a good customer there who had a young man that had always, that I'd met several times at the trade shows, and he'd always wanted to start a popcorn popping, and he had a much different vision. He was thinking of one popper on the corner, and we'd been seeing what ready-to-eat popcorn was doing in the United States. And so, and you visited there, it started out pretty simple, and with just some popcorn poppers, and we've been able to grow that. Now we're in about 15,000 retail outlets, and
Mexico.
In Mexico, and it's grown to we have like 50 employees there. And again, like when you were there, maybe we had 10. And,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And over 50% of the market, and our brand of Slim Pop, which is marketed all over Mexico, and it's targeting a healthy popcorn. They have obesity there like we do here, and so it's a high fiber, high protein, healthy snack with minimal calories, and it's gone over quite well. And not this all smooth, lots to learn and lots of things about retailing that have been challenging, but another way, you can't get any more value added than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a great point because you talk about value added agriculture, which is taking what we grow and processing it or doing something to it that adds more value. And of course, making ready to eat popcorn where you pop it, package it. Now it's got more value. You can sell it for a higher margin.
Yes. Yeah. And that's been the goal and continues to be. And this year we're doing microwave down there in Mexico. And as you alluded to, we're starting to pop popcorn here in Waco, Nebraska. So another small town where we can help the economy. And of course, we're hoping that it grows and is prosperous for the company.
Yeah. And Nebraska is the #1 popcorn state.
Yes, it's a great place to raise popcorn, and people often ask that. And that's one of the questions in here, why Nebraska? And the climate is good, it's ideal. The growing season is ideal for popcorn. And then, as you know well, the irrigation that we have makes us a dependable supplier that even after the drought of 2012, we still kept shipping popcorn, and that's important. It's a great trait that Nebraska has.
Yeah, we're the largest irrigated state in the country, 9 million acres. 3 in every 8 farmland acres is irrigated. So it is, you're right, It's a huge advantage for us.
It's amazing and something that we should. And why another reason, of course, is, I'm a big proponent of exporting, because back to our original story, all of Lincoln's only using the one truckload.
Right.
And now, of course, we're been blessed. We market about 100 a week now, and so that kind of puts it in perspective how much popcorn and how many places you have to go to sell 100 truckloads a week. It takes billions of people to consume that much popcorn.
Yeah.
And a lot of fun stories. And again, back to Nebraska and the growth, I owe a lot to, I don't know if you remember the Brim family and Douglas Theaters that was right here.
Oh,
in
yeah,
Lincoln,
sure. Yeah,
Nebraska.
absolutely.
When we first started, nobody had heard of preferred popcorn, and it was hard to get in the door. Yet, if I could get in there and I could get them to do a blind test and pop our popcorn against the competitor's popcorn, we would always win. We knew how to raise high expansion, great tasting popcorn, and that family right here in Lincoln was great to give us. They're one of the first to give us a try, to give this small company in Chapman, Nebraska, a chance. So we began there at Douglas, and now that's of course grown to Marcus Theaters here in Lincoln, and we're fortunate to supply Marcus and most of the other major cinemas in America. So we've been blessed to go from 0 theaters to most of them in the United States right now are eating preferred popcorn.
And it's not just the United States too, don't you have a lot in Japan as
Correct.
well?
Japan is really big. Almost all of Japan.
And weren't you trying to break into Germany when we were there in 2019 as well?
Yes. We have a great distributor there. He was a part of the program, if you remember, and they were there and met you, and they were warmly welcomed us, and that's, of course, hit by COVID. If it wouldn't have been for that, I think it would be even further. But
right, because the whole movie theater business took a thing. How did you overcome that challenge? Because imagine if movie theaters aren't open, they're not buying popcorn. So how did you overcome that challenge?
We had to go back to what got us started, and that was to export to other countries that aren't just for movies. Surprisingly, in the Middle East, Egypt particularly, they consume popcorn daily as a snack and as food. And so we had to get really aggressive and look for other sources, because we had bins. We had added 7 more bins during the COVID process, because you have this corn coming and all of a sudden all your theaters are shut down. But we had good contacts and got aggressive and sold to one particular customer in Egypt 300 containers.
Wow.
So if you go back to that original story, university used one. The Nebraska probably uses 100, and this gentleman took 300, and that was huge in helping us to get through the challenges of COVID and the cinema industry being shut down. And now we have another place to go to sell our product. So Dubai is there, and some from the state of Nebraska were in the Middle East just a few weeks ago at a trade show. So that's a market now that we went after doing to help get through the COVID crisis.
So being an entrepreneur, just adapting to the circumstances and figuring out ways to make it happen, thinking outside the box, like you were talking about.
Yes, we were really blessed to find those guys. You can't imagine. We have a little tradition, and that's kind of part of our philosophy. You work hard, you do the best you can, but when you get a little victory, you celebrate. And so we fire up the Macarena and march up and down the hall. When we get a big sale, that's quite a sight. And I learned that at some of my trips to Mexico.
Well, having fun at the office, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I think you got to do that, because we've been through so many tough things, and Nebraskans and Americans, and of course all that's happening now around the world. And so, but when you get a success along the way, you want to celebrate it, and that's kind of one of our models, and we do that. So when we got that first sale to Egypt, we were pretty happy guys that, hey, we're gonna pull through this, and that wasn't easy either. Now the big challenge, Governor, is containers and freight, availability. The Americans, the economy was pretty stimulated during the COVID, so we were buying more than anybody in the world, and so all these containers were coming here, but there was such demand that they didn't want to take that container from California and bring it to Nebraska and put popcorn in it, which has really been working quite well up until then. Now they just want to ship them back empty.
Right.
And then again, our government officials in Nebraska have been great. Deb Fisher hosted a whole group of senators, a transportation committee, and I was able to testify and share the challenges that puts on, because it shows how quickly, when the exports dry up and get difficult, soon you're back to building more bins, and that's not a long-term solution. You have to figure out ways to sell it. So that's, as like most Americans right now, the big challenge is containers and freight availability and cost of shipment, and just getting it. I kind of compare it to like if you're a farmer dreaming for $6 corn, and now it's $6, and you got it. You have no truck. You cannot get it. Can you imagine? You can't get it anywhere. You can't get it from the bin to the elevator because you have no truck to take it in.
So you touched upon it a little bit earlier, but the importance of that multi-generational family passing on to the farm, to the next generation, that sort of thing. Why is that so important?
Well, there's some, obviously, a lot of reasons, and thank you for bringing that point up, because it's a very important question. It takes a generation to purchase farmland and farm equipment and acquire the capital that it takes to even run a farm operation. My dad, as I said, was farming 45 years. He had one parcel of ground that he passed down to us 4 kids, and that helped give you that start to remain in agriculture. And then, I've been trying to do that since I was 21 years old. Sue is saying, are we ever going to get out of debt? And because that's the way it is. One of those economists at the university said, if you're farming now, you're going to go into a state of peripheral debt. You will be in debt all of your career. And that's okay, but then at the end of that, you need to have the ability to pass it on down to the family without excessive taxes. And I know you've been a big proponent of lower property tax. That's really key. Farmland is hard to pay for, and so that extra burden of a high property tax is a big challenge, and it's getting that down is going to bring more business to Nebraska as well, because some businesses nowadays, they don't have to be in a certain spot. They can be located anywhere, and so working hard to keep a positive Nebraska business environment is important, and so passing that down is key. And Sam's gonna carry that on. It's what drives you every day. I don't think I'd be nearly as motivated at my age to run around the country to sell some more popcorn or start another ready-to-eat plant if you didn't know that you had family that was going to come along and continue that. that business.
So why are you so optimistic about popcorn? And because you talked about some of the positive things, why are you optimistic about popcorn and agriculture?
Well, it's the fundamentals that make the world go, as food, ag, water, and those are all things that all people need. You know, we spend a lot of time buying video games and those things, but the real truth is the fundamentals.
I spent a lot of time buying video games.
Right, and we spend a lot of time watching them, and there's technology. Not saying those things are bad, but fundamentally, what do we need? We need food, water, and fuel.
Right.
And Nebraska's, I'm optimistic because we live in one of the most productive places on the globe for food. And ethanol, as you know, and been a strong supporter of, is going to be really important going forward. And so, and the interesting thing too, in all those travels, is there is no more efficient production than the farmers here in Nebraska, and a lot of the Corn Belt, of course, in the U.S. Do a fantastic job with technology. We now have the ability with GPS to tell if we have planted 2 seeds instead of 1.
You know, isn't that crazy?
On a 40-acre field, you can walk around with your laptop, find that one spot where you planted a double. So we're very efficient, and we're hardworking, and great people of high integrity make Nebraska a great place, and we have great natural resources to produce food. And fundamentally, that's not going to change and go away. So hopefully we can continue to work hard, do a good job, and then be able to export our product.
Yeah. Now, you talked about being in Chapman, town of 296 people. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So what about attracting and retaining talent? Has that been a challenge for you?
Well, certainly in this day and age, it's a big challenge. But we found if you treat people well and treat them respectfully and provide a good culture, seems to be as important as wage. Wage is important, but having a place where it's a good culture and people feel part of the company and part of the team goes a long ways. And we've been very fortunate. We have a very talented team there in Chapman, and now.
So do you hire mostly local folks to get people to move from out of state, or
We've
even
been
the bigger cities like
pretty
Lincoln and Omaha?
fortunate, mostly local, Central City, Grand Island, Chapman, and of course all the small towns in the area, and now York and Seward, and it's been amazing the talent we've been able to have. And small towns as small as Waco, another small town there.
How big is Waco?
It's less than 300. I think their big goal is we're going to get enough that they can get a convenience store open. That's their goal. I think we need like another 10 people in that town, and they'll have a convenience store. So we're going to do that. Already about 10 people working there, and hopefully soon it's 50 as that gets rolled out. And then we have a popcorn plant in Indiana as well. And we often,
they're like the second biggest popcorn state.
They are. We often jest with them about which country is the biggest. And we have a good time teasing their state as well, and great people there. And that's near Palmyra, Indiana, and near Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
So we raise popcorn all the way from western Nebraska to Louisville.
Wow, fantastic. And also, just getting back to the talent aspect, you said most of the folks are local, but I imagine one of the things that when you're especially looking to keep young people here in Nebraska, offering them a job in their hometown, or at least in their region, with a great quality of life we have, is certainly a bonus being able to attract those folks, right?
Yeah, most the people we like to grab are those that want to live here, and it would be awfully difficult to find someone from Denver or California and persuade them to move here and pay them enough to do that. But fortunately, a lot of people do want to live here because of the great environment that we have, and a lot of talent here, and we've had great luck hiring. We had one just recent, this Waco situation, and we needed a food quality person, and we thought probably we'd have to go to Denver to find that person. But we put an ad, and we said, before we do that, let's put an ad in. And unbelievably, a person that lived in Waco applied, and her father had just passed away, and she came home to
Where was she before?
renovate the house. Denver.
She was in Denver. Okay.
She lived in Denver. Now she lives about 300 feet from our Waco plant. So
That's a pretty heck. It's a
that
nice
was
commute.
a great
That's
blessing.
a nice commute, isn't it?
That was a great blessing. Yeah.
It's a heck of a commute.
For both people.
300 feet.
Yeah. Maybe yards. Maybe exaggerating.
300 yards.
300
Okay,
yards.
yeah.
Very close. A few
Yeah.
blocks away, and had lived in Denver and been doing exactly the type of work in a restaurant business that we
That
were
you're looking
looking
for.
for. So, of course, we're challenged now. We need as many people as we can get fast, and it seems to be true all over the United States. There's a labor shortage that's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and certainly the pandemic has contributed to that. I know there was a lot of people who were in the workforce that just retired, just said they were ready to not come back to work, and so that makes it a challenge for people.
Right. Yeah, I think we obviously, it was great to help people out through the pandemic, but we want to
anything-
encourage them to get back to work.
Yeah, is there anything in particular? I know we talked a little bit about some of the pandemic challenges with shipping. Is there any other challenges that you have with the pandemic that you had to overcome?
Well, yeah, shipping is certainly a big one, and higher fuel prices is certainly a big one. But the biggest thing was when your entire business shut down. There's supply chain things with bags. So we had one point where we were getting awfully close to we had all the popcorn we needed, but not enough paper bags to put them in. So that takes a lot of planning and management to make sure you don't run out of bags.
Right.
But no, we've been pretty blessed in that. We stayed open the entire time, and we didn't have any
Well, we didn't shut down here in
layoffs.
Nebraska. We didn't have one of those
No.
statewide shutdowns.
No.
Other states did, but not us.
That's right. Yeah, and thank you for that. I think we came through that better than probably any state.
Yeah.
So we did not have one day where we had to have a total shutdown. We kept producing. We're a food company.
Yeah, that's a big
and
deal.
We kept producing all the way through, and the PPP was a great program. That was a challenge when business was lower. How are we going to keep all our people? And that program worked perfectly
Wonderful.
for
Well,
us.
Probably one of the few federal programs you can point to and say that was really successful.
That worked. That worked, and I think it accomplished what it intended
Supposed to,
to
yeah.
do. It was supposed to. We were able to keep everybody employed, and that way, when the business picked back up, we still had our same good team.
Yeah. All right, we're probably coming toward the end of our time, but is there any other story or anything else that you want to talk about that we didn't cover? Anything that just strikes you from your 45-year career in popcorn and from your family farm to being one of the major, Preferred Popcorn is one of the, you've got all these movie theaters across the country. You're one of the major popcorn producers in the country, and certainly you're known around the world. Any other story from the creation of that popcorn empire?
Well, I would say, don't be afraid to chase your dreams. Don't be discouraged. There was a recent movie out called Sing, and I took my grandkids to that. And in that movie, there's a scene where there's a wolf, and they're coming up and they do their performances, and he pushes a button, and it's flush, And I really almost get teared up in that, because in part of our startup, I felt like, the guy that got the button push, flush.
Yeah.
Do you want to buy some popcorn? Flush. And so, but we kept going. We had to. This was the family dream, and we kept going. So, yeah, I'd encourage Nebraskans to be confident in where you're from. I've been a lot of places in the world. I can say that with some certainty, maybe more than most. And yet, I know where I'm always glad to come home. There haven't been anywhere where I said, I wish I lived here. Mm-hmm. I've been places where it's been great to visit. I've been on some nice beaches, and I've done a lot of fun things, but I'm always glad to come back to Nebraska. And so we live in a great spot in the world, and we just need to appreciate that. Don't give up. Keep going. Chase your dreams. And anything is possible. And that's how the mode of operation we've been under, and operate with integrity. That's our mission statement. So,
all right, great. All right, anything else as we wrap up?
No, thank you so much for the opportunities. Thank you for letting me share our story.
How can people follow you, Preferred Popcorn? Like if somebody's watching this, listening to this, and they say, hey, I want to find out more about Preferred Popcorn, what do they do?
Oh, we're like everybody. We're on Facebook. Our product's available on Amazon, and so
of course, Amazon,
of course, yes. You can order that product there. locally, Hy-Vee, and the local stores carry
So you
it.
sell
And-
locally as well. Okay.
Yes, but so far hasn't been our big deal, but working to change that and get a house brand, and go to the movies and buy two tubs of popcorn.
There you go.
We've been waiting a long time for the movies to get back, and it is really fun to see people carrying out a tub of popcorn and know that that's something you created
Yeah.
and was involved in the plant breeding, everything from the plant breeding to the final product.
Yeah. What's your website?
Preferredpopcorn.com.
Okay. So nice and easy.
Nice and easy, and we certainly appreciate all the support and help we've gotten from state government and county government and national programs, and we'll kind of keep marching forward.
All right, great. Well, hey, folks, thanks again for joining us on another edition of the Nebraska Way. You can follow us at Gov Ricketts, Facebook. We're on Twitter. You can always email my office at pete.ricketts@nebraska.gov. Another great way to get in touch with us. So if you have a chance, please go give us a rating. Love to have a 5-star rating so we can keep promoting the program here. And Norm, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your Nebraska story. Just what a wonderful success story from Chapman, Nebraska, a town of 300 people, that you have created this great company that sells popcorn to 70 different countries and created, I should ask you, we didn't cover that. How many jobs do you create in Nebraska?
I have about 75.
75 jobs in Nebraska.
Jobs in Nebraska.
So that's awesome.
And jobs about 50 in Indiana and another 50 in Mexico. So then we didn't take jobs from here. Those
Right.
are additional jobs.
Those were all expansions.
Those are all expansions, and we're looking forward to grow into this
All right, great.
next segment.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Nebraska Way.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Great.
Paid for by Pete Ricketts for Governor, 1610 N Street, Suite 100, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68508.